Icicle beverage. What is that? That's Niagara water. That's good stuff. Got my Pro Charger stuff on. Actually, I was out working on the back on the Tree Fort version 2.0. Today I was building the ladder. So today, but also we went to the state fair today. So my niece, I guess, or not my nephews, at least his sister's kids. They are little, and so this is the first time that they've been on, the older of the two, the first time that he's ever been on rides and stuff. So it was awesome to see little ones going on rides, and that's just cool stuff. See them get excited about little roller coasters and flying Dumbos and all that good stuff. But today I was working on the Tree Fort 2.0. And today was mostly about the ladder, building it's like a 10-foot ladder to go up to, from ground level up to where the thing is. So it won't be like that. Well, there was an external one on the old Tree Fort too, not as high as that, not as high as this one's going to be. And this one's not going to be like a multi-story thing like the other one was, that was kind of sitting on ground level that you walk into. So but it'll be cool. It's evolving as I'm doing it. And this is what happened with the last one too, is you start doing things, and because I didn't do this stuff of a blueprint from YouTube or whatever, I'm just doing it. I'm just, it's all up here, which is why it's constantly evolving and changing. You're like, oh yeah, that's going to be in the way of that, and that's not going to work. But it's all working out good. Tonight, what I want to talk about is how bad is bad. And by that, I mean, and because I'm a wrecking yard guy and I get those kinds of motors all the time, when you open them up, which we do on numerous occasions, primarily usually to put ring gap in them, sometimes to find out if there's something wrong with them. Sometimes we get some that are not great. The vast majority of the motors that I've gotten from the wrecking yard, if you take a little bit of precaution before you take it home, they're all pound puppies and we want to bring them all home. But there are some there that are more well-behaved than others. So when you go there, just test it. Does it spin over? Just do the very basic minimums kind of thing. You could take a battery, you could crank it over, you could do a compression test. You could get fairly elaborate in your test procedure before you bring something home. And that usually results in better results, if for lack of a better term. You usually, and you can find out if it has oil pressure. You can do lots of stuff. And so before you bring it home, if that's what you're doing. Now, most of the time I don't do that. We just go and I find one. I try to get one that's crashed so that we know that it was running when it came in. It got hit hopefully in the back, not in the front. It can be in the front too, as long as it didn't hurt anything in the motor. Those are better ones. If the whole thing's perfect, then you're thinking, well, did the transmission go out? Did the motor go out? And that's why they couldn't get it to run. Is that why it's here? And sometimes it's an easy thing, but sometimes it's not. And the photo that I have up, the thumbnail, is a rusty cylinder, basically. And if you take a look at it, there are a lot of guys that, we have the spectrum. People are on the spectrum here. And so you'll get maybe people that work at a machine shop, or they're professional engine builders. They work for a cup team or whatever, and they're going to look at that and go, yeah, no, that's anywhere from that's a throwaway. Like I wouldn't ever use that, even if we remachined it, all the way to, okay, look, that obviously that whole thing needs to come apart. Everything needs to be cleaned. It needs to be bored 30 over. It needs the whole 9 yards. You got to spend, $1,000 or thousands of dollars on making it right, and then put it back together. And then there's only one way to do it. Everything's got to be gone through. All the bearing clearances you got to put fresh bearings and everything, fresh rings and everything. You got to oversized pistons. You got to, put rods, whatever, all that. You got to do all of it. That's one side of it. The other side of it is I'm just going to run it anyways and just see what happens. And both of those have their, you can discuss both sides of that, because plenty of guys have gotten away with just running it. And then other guys, you're definitely going to get away with fixing it. So that is not going to be a problem at all. You're definitely going to get away with fixing it, and then it's going to be right. The question is, you're also going to spend a lot of money doing that. So do you want to do that? Do you want to spend that money? Because the vast majority of us are going to go, yeah, I know if I spend couple $1,000 and build a brand new motor. I'm going to have a brand new motor. Okay. What if I didn't do that? How can I get away with more on this side? Not just hoping for the best, but maybe something between, like, throwing a couple of Hail Marys, putting it in, and then going, oh yeah, it's got a dead hole or whatever. If you look at the thumbnail, there's obviously a lot of rust on that. I'll tell you the things that I get away with when we do these things. So if you look at that photo, there's rust. Now you got to look at the thing as a whole, though. Where is the rust at? Sometimes if there's water sitting, like stationary, the thing sitting outside and got rain in or whatever, and the valve was open, it went through the intake manifold or whatever, that's a little harder to do on an EFI intake manifold on an LS. More often than not, a carbureted manifold they could get through, or if the person doesn't have an intake manifold on there or doesn't have a carburetor on there, and you have an open valve, pretty easy for moisture to get in there. Also, if the spark plugs are not in there, again, easy for moisture to get in there. So if it's sealed up, it's actually hard for stuff to get in there. And if it had been running, there's oil vapor on stuff. And so unless it sits for a really, really long time, it's fairly rust resistant, let's say. But if you have some in there, like in that photo, then what do you do with it? Well, when we take something apart and we see this, once you started taking it apart, you've taken the heads off, obviously, to look in there. And then you have to go, well, I'm this far. Should I just take it all apart and see what's what? Now, in this instance, on that 6-liter, we didn't do that because we were taking it apart, but we were taking it apart that day, and we were also running it on the dyno that day. So something had to happen. So what we did in this instance, and what we've done in a lot of times, is take it apart, clean it. And by cleaning it, I don't mean putting it in a hot tank. Just clean it, like wipe it down, like you would go wash your car. We wiped it down, and not even necessarily with soap and water, but just with, and you're having gloves on, but just with a rag and gas or WD-40 or something, transmission fluid, whatever you do. Just clean all the stuff out. Get all the stuff off that will come off just by wiping it and see what's there. Okay, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the rust that you see in that photo, is some of that stuff just wipes away. The stuff that doesn't, now you got to go, okay, now what do I do? Well, what we do is you can take Scotch-Brite and WD-40, and I spray the WD-40 on the Scotch-Brite. You can also spray it on the cylinder wall because it's not going to hurt anything. And we do this with the pistons in there because, I'm going to blow it all out with air anyways. So, people worried about it getting down the ring lines. Oh no, it's got the whole thing's coming apart. If you've taken it all apart, like we had, and by all apart, I just mean had you taken the pistons out. We had taken the pistons out in this instance because we were putting ring gap in it anyways. So if you take it apart and put ring gap in it, you find that, you might think, oh no, this is like the end of the world. Now I got to re-machine this thing. No, you don't. So take it apart. You're going to have to unstick the rings and add ring gap to it anyway. So you're doing that. You're going to clean the pistons, dunk them in gas or whatever, however you're going to clean them. That's fine. Make sure that you free them up so that the oil rings spin, and then put the added ring gap in the top and second ring and make sure that those move around, that they don't have a bunch of carbon buildup and stuff back behind the ring, and clean all that up. And then the pistons are ready to go. Look at the bearings. The bearings are probably fine. Just look at them. Yeah, those are still good. Clean them, put new oil on them before you put them in. That's typical rebuilding kind of thing. I mean, you haven't really changed anything, but you've cleaned them and you put fresh oil on them, and you've cleaned the crank throws, and so you put fresh oil on that. And so, it's kind of a rebuild. With the cylinders, what we do is we will take and we will put WD-40 on Scotch-Brite, and then we'll just, and you're only attacking the areas where there's rust. If there's rust, if you're lucky, there's rust only at the top of the bore. That's fantastic. The rings don't touch that anyways. So it's not like that there's going to be, it's not going to, the ring's not going to hit that. So it's not going to snap a ringland. And if you scuff that up, you don't affect the sealing at all. So that's not a big deal. So you just scuff that up, wipe away the rust, keep wiping it with a rag, wipe the rust, wipe it with a rag, get it all clean. And you can get 90 plus, let's say, % out of that. You get rid of it all. Now the question is, okay, but Richard, what happens if the rust is down lower? If you take a close look at the photo that I use of one of the Big Bang motors, it has a really bad rust stain in it. And that's actually, we ball honed it. So this was after ball honing it. The stain was still there. If that tells you how bad it was to begin with, it should, like I said, on this side of it, it would have been, we got to bore that thing and then hone it and put a bigger piston in it. We're trying to break it anyways. I'm not doing that. So we did a quickie ball hone on it, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. If you don't want to do that, that's another option too. You could, I ball honed it with the crank still in there. We did that on the little 2.2 Dodge motor. Ball hone it, run a couple through there, and you could use WD-40 or oil or something. Just ball hone it. Just try to get your strokes even and consistent. And it's amazing how well they clean up. But short of that, even if you have rust, because you're going to have a rust stain in one particular spot usually. So what happens is wherever the piston position is, and if you have water on the piston, it'll go down the bore past the ring. It'll go through the gap in the ring usually, and so sometimes you'll get a stain tracking down there. So it'll go down this side and then down this side, and then particularly if the gap is on the downside of the angle of the piston, because the piston's at an angle. So if the gap is on the upside, the water's not going to sneak out of there. It's going to be hard for it to sneak past the ring. So what happens is the water pools up and sits there, and then wherever the water is, whatever the shape of the water is sitting on top of the piston, that's going to be your rust spot. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to be like a little half moon kind of thing, because that's usually what the shape of it is with the V angle. And so you're going to get rust right there. So if you get the water out and you see you have a rust stain there, you go, okay, how bad is that? Well, if you, like I said, even if the piston is still in it, if you bring the piston down away from where that rust spot is, if it's all the way down at the bottom, then you clean it. And it's amazing if you can clean it with Scotch-Brite and WD-40, and you just scuff it and you're like, yeah, but I'm going to hurt the sealing. You're not really, because when is the sealing most important? Is it at bottom dead center? No. So that's not a critical thing. Is it at top dead center? No, that's not a critical thing. So somewhere in the middle there, if you get some steel wool, or not steel wool, but because we've even used sandpaper on some really stubborn stuff. You just get really, really fine, like emery cloth or 1200 or something. Get something that 2000, something that's not going to take away a lot. But sometimes if the rust buildup is thick, you gotta take some material away, and so you got to get after it. But like I said, WD-40, steel wool, take away the rust area. Concentrate on that. Try not to dig into the other areas. Clean that off. Wipe it all down, and then if you spin the motor over, you'll see that the piston ring will kind of help you like reseal that thing. Hit it with a couple of shots of nitrous, and most of the time that works well and you're good to go. I'm not saying that that's the same as rebuilding a motor, because it's not, but it's definitely not spending a few $1,000s on remachining everything. That's the right way to go if you have the money, but the other way also works. Practical beverage. Just run it. There you go, Dan. Let's see what you guys got going on. Just call her old Rusty. That's right. Jordan, untrue Scottish. What's going on? This is going to be good. This is a good one. Nothing but a few road signs can't fix. Just weld them in. They're good. Reno's in the house. I had surface rust that can be wiped away on my rockers on my LS. You think the valve cover gaskets or the rubber gaskets around the 4-center bolts gave way? Yeah. And the other thing that happens is you can get condensation in there, because we get that sometimes. We run the motor cold enough that you can get condensation in there. Can you recommend a DoD delete kit for an LS4? BTR has DoD delete kits, and we can put one together for you at richardholdnerperformance.com, because we're a BTR dealer, or you could go directly to them. Remember, 2 strokes at C's, knock the piston out, remove the aluminum with muriatic acid. Didn't even hone it afterwards. Yeah, if you could get that out and get the piston moving freely again. Alabama's in the house. Do you build engines for people? I don't. I only build the ones that I do, and I put them together for testing. What is too much rust for a Mark IV Chevy water jacket? The water jacket I'm not nearly as concerned about. You can have the block like flushed, but I'm not actually too concerned about that. When's the turbo kit coming out? As soon as we're ready with stuff. Do you need to angle a Scotch-Brite similar to the crosshatch? We don't normally do that. Because you're trying to remove that material. You're not trying to put a sealing surface on the crosshatch. I would worry about crosshatch if you were doing a ball hone, but not with this, because this is only going to be one small area. Ontario, what's going on? Can you use Scotch-Brite on an LS1 block when prepping for a head swap? On the deck surface? Yeah, you can. We've done that too. And the razor blade rebuild works to get all the gasket material off, and then you can scuff that if you want. Danny, Bobanny. Fee, fi, fo, fanny. Frosty cold beveragios. It's amazing how better you feel about them after you've cleaned them like that. And you haven't, I mean, technically you haven't rebuilt it, but it feels like that. Like you take them apart, like when I take them apart, like that 6 liter or the 5.3, take them apart and clean them, make sure the rings are all working and all that stuff. And you know, clean all the crud out of the oil rings so that they move around. And then you put it back together and you're like, yeah, that's basically rebuilding it. And so for a guy that's learning, that's actually a good procedure for a guy to go through. Take it apart and put it back together, but don't change anything. You know, don't. You're not having to, you know, check the bearing clearances or, you know, check the ring gap or any of that stuff. But it shows you the procedure of going through that to get that done. Didn't know if I needed to go represent. Currently building a 370 LS, rec port heads, high ram, 235 cam. Is that an NA one? That's a good size cam. Good old marketplace rebuild. Tech Talk. Yep. I did a stage 2 dingle ball rebuild. That works too. I've used that. Westech has a ball hone that's for a big block. I can tell by the bore diameter, but I've used it on lots of stuff. It's good. It's got bendy. It's got what is it? A twisty bobcat pretzel. So what you do with all the motors when you test them. I still have a bunch of them that I just keep reusing them. Mild cam for the win. Yep. 781 increased valves on a Mark IV or 7.4 Vortec total engine. Are you wondering, like, you gotta tell me what kind of power you're trying to make and then what you're trying to do with the motor, and then I can kind of direct you towards the answer there. I had the crank ground. I just got it back together and running today, like an hour ago. Aerosol overhaul. There you go. Talking about, didn't know if I had to represent. Oh. Yeah, I'm at least it probably doesn't like when I answer the door. I'm not nice to door-to-door like solicitors. I don't have time or patience for them. And a setup for a truck just for a fun toy. Okay, yeah, that should be pretty sporty. That's a good size cam, and you got plenty cylinder head, you got plenty of intake manifold, so that should make good power. Update on the L20. I have a broken block. So spent $200 for the crank rods, pistons, and all the valve gear from the cam on up and the heads. That's still a good deal. How did you find out that the block is cracked? The extra pressure makes the balls work better. It just gives it more bite, right? Just fun. Twin 35s. Oh, on the big block? You can do a Mark IV, Bill, but honestly, I just would get a hydraulic roller cammed Gen 6. It's a 4-bolt block. And so there's plenty of potential there, but maybe I'm biased. I'm leaning away toward running flat tappet cams. Richard, what are you guys using for Gen 5 motors for high flow injectors, also for high pressure fuel pumps? Been doing research and haven't found any high pound injectors yet. Almost everybody goes to, I don't know how much power you're trying to make, but the setup for those is usually LT4 stuff. So you use the LT4 pump, use the LT4 injectors, and then you put a bigger lobe on whatever cam you put in it to give more pump flow. And then after that, there are aftermarket alternatives to big injectors, but that none of them are inexpensive. Them ridge reaming before the compression rings. Make sure to check for cracks in water journals, head ports. Are you if you're talking about an LS, ridge reaming is not really a thing on the LS motors. The bores don't wear. Ridge reaming on small block Chevys, an older small block Chevys, definitely a necessity, or can be a necessity. I've done that a lot. If you have to use a ridge reamer, you have to rebore it. Vegas is in the house. I have a stock 351 and a 67 Mustang. Nice. I want to buy 227 11R heads. Do a 4-inch stroke. Do you think these heads are too big for the street strip? No, but what sort of power level do you think that you're looking for? If you're not looking to utilize those heads, and the what they have 190s, I think. Because 11R heads, even the smallest ones, flow really, really well. Mac 850 to 1,000. I don't know how much. I don't know how far the LT4 stuff will take you, but you should be able to look online and see that. I have a friend with a Magnaflux. Richard, are you going to duct tape drags this year? I don't know. I don't know when. Is it in September or something? Just got done with a 15-hour endurance race with an LT106 Corvette. We were starting to consume oil. I think it would be rings. You got to check all the usual things. I don't know what the normal thing is. It could be rings. It could be guides. I prepared my build, did a 3-stone hone, then hit it with a dingle ball hone for crosshatch. Came out great for the turbo build. Nice. Stock pistons. RG. I used penetrating oil and a breaker bar on an 80 Civic with a blow-in head gasket. Hand sanded the cylinder, surface ahead. It was driven from California to Washington. Nice. I somehow ended up with a sidekick yesterday. Followed me home. A sidekick, the vehicle, or a sidekick like a dog or a kangaroo or something? Fossil fuels. It's in October. Okay, that's some time from now. What's the highest horsepower you've seen a 350 put out? A naturally aspirated one or turbocharged one? And can it be an aftermarket block, an aftermarket head? And like, what are you talking about? We would enjoy seeing some of your personal builds or cars, maybe some videos in the future. Also, I'm hoping your channel gets more views in the future. One of the best channels for information. Yeah, I don't really do builds. I am doing right now. I'm doing the Sprint Turbo for Bonneville, so I'm doing that. We have the Tahoe, Jimmy's Tahoe, that we're doing a bunch of testing on. So we have those, but I don't have something that I build for. That's not really a build channel, more of a dyno testing. Now maybe we can incorporate more of that. More smoke on D-cell, not during Excel. How do you have your PCV run? What cams you use to make 400 horsepower on a Gen 6 454? That 276 hydraulic roller cam will make 425 at the flywheel. Oh, Suzuki Sidekick. Okay. I got an M112 supercharger from a Jaguar. What size crank pulley will I need to feed a 350 Chevy? Got a 7-inch stock. Well, what did the blower come with? I would run whatever the blower came with and then see what happens and then adjust from there. Do you go to car shows often? Do you do meet and greets? I don't really do meet and greets. I don't get asked to do that very often. And I don't just do that myself. I did go to a car show today. In fact, when I went to the California State Fair, they had a little car show, lots of lowriders and stuff, which I think is cool. They had a couple of, in fact, I stopped and talked to one guy, the weirdest one of all of them, because not a show car at all. There were lots of like really nicely restored and fancy cars there. But the one that I stopped and talked to the guy was a 73 El Camino, and it had 454 badges on it. And I'm like, okay, this is definitely going to be there's definitely going to be a small block under the hood of this thing, because like he just put badges on this because it's not going to say 454 on it. And I walked up, and sure enough, it was a factory big block 73 or 74 El Camino, and it was nice. It was clean. It's not like it was restored or anything, but the guy, it was a nice job. And I looked under the hood, and it's a factory, like it's a factory setup. Now in 73, it wasn't making a lot of power, obviously, in stock form anyway, but still it's a factory big block. It's a turbo 400, He said, yeah, it doesn't get very good fuel mileage. I'm like, no, probably not. He didn't know what gears were in it. He has owned it since, I want to say, the late 70s. He's not the original owner, but he's owned it for a really long time. I thought it was really cool. And that was my thing. I was looking under the hood of all these cars. That's what I cared about. And most of them were, conventional carbureted small blocks. One guy had a K5 Blazer that had an LS3 swap in it. That was nicely done. And there are lots of older cars, and I'm like pre-55 stuff. It looks nice or whatever, but it's not my thing. I haven't gone out of my way to learn lots about them. I mean, a 34, I guess that's cool, but the Tri-5 stuff and up are kind of more the things that I identify with. And so that's the thing that I was drawn to this guy's, because I'm there with my father-in-law, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, hey, that's a small block. Yep, that's a small block. That's 327. Only because it said 327 on the valve cover, so I'm assuming. But it's definitely a small block. And so I'm looking at those, and I'm looking at that. And when I walked up and saw the 454, I looked at them. I'm like, yeah, that's got the big valve covers, man. That is a big block. That's awesome. And it's it doesn't have like Mickey Thompson valve covers or anything like our Moroso ones or whatever. It just has the factory stamped steel valve cover. So it's pretty cool. We made almost 900 with an SB 2.2. Could you make more than that if we didn't have those pesky rules to deal with? Yeah, I mean, think about an unrestricted version of that motor that, like in a drag race application, I'm sure that they did 1,000+ horsepower stuff out of things that were 350 inches. Any aftermarket or any fuel type. Well, then if you ran nitromethane on stuff, it could be multiple thousands of horsepower if you open up fuel and open up any aftermarket part, and if it's a NA. Set a video on changing the regulator. It looks like a quick change. The window regulator, yeah. Do you happen to know how much lift camshaft I can use with a stock 351 piston, 11R heads without notching the piston? The lift doesn't matter. It would be duration would be the thing that would cause piston to valve clearance. And I don't know what that combination is going to be, because I don't know what you mean by stock 351 piston, because for 351s, they use a lot of different pistons. And then I don't know about the 11R head. You're going to have to measure it. My guess is somewhere in the 230s, but I don't know that for sure. Saw a nice 80 Camaro today. Glad to see the Malaise era stuff getting some love. The other cool cars I saw, there were a couple of mid-60s Impalas, which were cool there too. Maybe should LS swap sidekick. Saw one once. I told the guy to call it a death trap. You don't think you want to be doing top speed stuff in that? Big shout out from Australia. Australia's in the house. On a mission to build an LS 4.8 street and race. Lots of good potential there. Just add boost, man. What's your favorite muscle car of all time? I don't think I have one of those. The one that I want is a 70 to 72 Chevelle. If I was going to get a muscle car, I think that would be it. One of my favorite cars that I've ever seen at West Tech was a Torino Talladega that was done up, kind of looked like a cup car. Even had a Jericho 4-speed in it, and it had a big like Kazi Boss 429 variant in there that was making, I don't know, 750 or something, and that was cool. I like that because and the guy was driving it, which I liked. Their guys have brought like really super fancy cars, several $100,000 cars in there, and they're nice. They're nicely done. There's no wave in the paint. It's all perfect. That's all great. Those cars are just not me. I want something that you can go drive. Richard, do you have a full-time career, or this is it? This is what I do. I'm just going to fix small issues and flip it. Anything on the 48 to 53 swap? No ECU tune? No, because I wasn't able to talk to the guy that I need to talk to today. On the PCV subject, can you briefly explain how crankcase pressure? Well, you could be burning the oil that you're drawing into the intake. And it's not unusual at all for oil vapor to get in. In fact, it's not unusual at all for the intake manifold to actually fill up with oil. If you have an LS intake manifold that has a lot of miles on it and you move it around, there's raw oil in there. And all that's from the PCV system. So it draws oil vapor out of the valve cover. And then if you have, depending on how your breather is set up or your baffles are set up, if you get oil in there and you draw the oil into the combustion process, it will blow smoke out. If you're just doing it during decel, I don't think it would be that. So a nice 73 Camaro. I'd like to have early 60s Falcon, like a Chevelle Laguna. Where are the commercials freezing? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the commercials. Just tested an LM7 with a BTR Stage 2 truck cam and an otherwise stock engine, made 383 and 380 foot-pounds. Is that par with your experience? Did you make 383 horsepower at the flywheel? Or because 383 horsepower at the tire would be a lot. YouTube's being rude. My wife did her first street legal drag race at Portland. Nice. What did Edward, what did she run? What car was it? Love how you interact with the fans. Yeah, that's what I've done the whole time that I've been doing. At first, I did it we couldn't interact too much, but I wrote for automotive magazines for decades, basically, and then transferred over to YouTube. Got a question for you. Can push rods that are too long make for a noisy valve train? I have an LS1 that I put LS7 lifters in, and now it's pretty loud. I don't know how too long of a push rod would cause valve train noise unless it broke something. I have a 71 Chevelle and a 69 Camaro, and I'm working now with a head and cam swap. Yeah, both of those are excellent. The 69 Camaro is awesome. I mean, the 69 Z28 is kind of the poster child of the muscle car era. There are lots of guys that would argue with that, but I think that's probably, I think that's probably accurate. But, a Hemi Cuda is awesome, although I don't think I wouldn't want a Hemi one because that's not my thing. But I like the 346 packs, like the AAR Cudas. Those are really cool. There's so many to choose from that I like. At the flywheel tuned on the stock PCM with a complete front drive in place. So 380 with a stage 2 cam, that's going to make less than a low buck truck camshaft or a truck Norris camshaft or a Chupacabra cam. I didn't think it was down that far, but I don't know how much timing you guys are running. I don't know what exhaust you have on there and stuff. Did you ever run it with the stock cam to see what that was at? I was turning an engine over this evening without manifolds on it. I didn't realize how much suction there is on the exhaust. It kind of startled me. I wasn't expecting it. How much suction there is on the exhaust? Nothing broken and good oil pressure. Can't for the life of me figure it out. She ran her Tesla 3, 11 at 125. She did not have it in track mode. That's pretty fast. Z28's rule. Everything else rules. 69 Firebird today. Beautiful car. I agree. And as much as I'm a 70 and a half split bumper Camaro, because that was my first car, as much as big a fan as I am of those, I think the early Trans Ams look better. My favorite car is a 69 Camaro RS SS. Yep. Yeah, and you can have that on the like you'd have a Z28 with an RS package on it. You can have hideaway lights and houndstooth and all of that stuff. I showed at my house in a 70s Camaro with links. He said, "How do you drive this thing?" Had to show him. 66 Fairlane. Yep. A Thunderbolt would be good. You know, a Q code or is it a Q or an R code Galaxy? That's what I mean. There's so many cool things. Oh, a Lenco is what you're trying to say. Okay, I was wondering. I don't know what links are. Shadow Ops. Paul's saying that the 48 to 53 needs to be retuned. I'd like to see. I'd like to try it and see what happens. You know, hopped up a Chrysler 273. I think that's going to be the same as doing a 318 or a 340 or a 360. Bought the low buck truck for the LQ9. I may boost it in the future and can add ring gap now. Would that take away from the NA performance or give it a lot of blow by? No, because you're not going very big on the ring gap. It's not going to hurt anything. If you're going to take it apart and put the camshaft in it, it might be a good idea to just do the ring gap now. It's not going to hurt anything. Do you have a recommendation for a tuner or dyno in Northern California? Does anybody else have anything for Cougar? Year to year, Firebird Trans Ams always look better first, second, third, and fourth gen. So you're a Trans Am guy? Okay. 77 two Chevelles are at every car show. 67 Olds 442 is where it's at. Again, also a good car. No, there's no denying that. Same cam, same injectors. I think the master meter is the same. I honestly don't know why it wouldn't work. Person like square bodies. I'm still wanting 1730 Can-Am car. You should get those. You should do a cheap build on one of those, Dan. Speed of compression and power events happen. Ring gap is negligible. Black screen on commercials is annoying. I don't know what's going on with the commercials. It's set up to run commercials. On the LM7, we didn't run it stock. Inch and 7/8, inch and 3/4 dyno headers. We'll play with timing a little. Did you guys run like 29 or 30 degrees of timing? What fuel did you run it on? 3/4 race cam, 68 Chevelle. Also good. If you're really looking to buy something, Morgantown, Auto Mall, and PA will have it. Check their website. Okay. First race car was a 63 Fairlane. Post looked like it pulled off the showroom floor. Shouldn't have raced it. Yeah. I don't want, like, the shell that I would want would be a driver. And ideally it would be probably an SS replica. Something that has a 307 and a 2-barrel, like a 2-speed power glide. Because I'm going to change all that anyways. Richard, if you have your choice of a 426 Hemi or a Max Wedge, I don't know enough about Max Wedges to know. I think that they're really cool, but I'm not a Mopar guy, so I don't know which one of those I would get. I think the Max Wedge would be even more other guys than a Hemi would be. Looking for an aluminum 5.3 and controller that can handle VVT. Race with Darren Hendricks. They did sick week. Turning it over the starter, I had my hand on the exhaust port. You could feel it pull on my hand. Is that not normal? I don't know when the exhaust would draw that. I mean, if the downward movement of the piston, 440 Magnums or 426 Hemis. None of those. I mean, the money part of it would be the thing for that. But like I said, I would, looking at the cars, I would much rather have an AAR CUDA, something like that, a 340 6-pack car, just because I think it's cool looking. I need to go build my 413 Mopar. Building an 84 Ranger. USA built here in Australia. Love your videos. Any tips on a 400 cubic inch small block bracket engine build? Yeah, just tell me what you're thinking. I mean, 400 inches is going to be the same as every other thing that you would use. It's just that you could get away with more camshaft because it's bigger and it's going to want more cylinder head and stuff. 48 and 53 have different cylinder air mass in the tune. I can't find the original question, whoever was asking it, though. Lunchbox is asking it. Or I mean, Shadow Ops. Chilling before I pass out for work. Right? Yeah, Shadow Ops was asking about it. Mopar guys are crazy. I was watching Roadkill, and some guys sold a factory Mopar hood for $3,500. Was it attached to a complete car? A 427 Cobra would be good too. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cobras. An L88 Corvette or a ZL1 Camaro, or there's a lot of good ones. LM7, 28 degrees, 91 pump. Okay. Yeah, I can look up and see what we did when we ran. Because we have run that cam before. Five, 3. Let's see. Yeah, that's about right. It's looking like it's 391 or something like that. So that's right. Possible leak down a compression stroke. Then the power stroke happens. There's less air in the cylinder, creating vacuum. Exhaust valve opens. Just a thought. I have a 421. I have some FR220s, and we'll run MS109. Well, it sounds like you're already good to go then. Cobra replica. Yeah, Cobra replica would be better than having a Cobra because people would want to steal a Cobra. They're just worth too much money. I guess I'd need to find the L33 tune just to adjust the stock 48 tune when the time comes. I have a 69 Chevy CST 10 396. Now it has a 454, the turbo 400, been sitting for 20 years. Other than fluid filter and seals, what else should I do? I don't know. Is it time? I don't know what its life was before that. Does it need to be rebuilt, or was it running good? Have a dead 4.8, thinking of making it into a flat top 5.3. I'd even settle for a McLaren and M8F with the 510 and big block and McKay fuel injection. Just the perfect combination for a daily driver, right, Dan? Trying to find an old box S10 or two-wheel drive Blazer to build. Factory 5 with a Gen 2 Coyote. I really like even more than the Cobras, I like the Daytonas. Now, I don't think that Daytona would be an ideal daily driver, but I like the fact that it's so much more aerodynamic. And I'm always thinking of Silver Statey, Bonneville kinds of things. Again, not that I would ever go out and, put, because a Cobra Daytona was 180 plus mile an hour car with not very much power. So if you put some kind of aluminum LS in it that made, instead of 400 or 450 or whatever, they made 550 or 650 or something. And so it would be a fairly serious car. If you ran roads, I haven't run roads lifters. Got to put an FE in a Cobra replica. Trying to do the install of my 408 Windsor and my Cobra replica. I don't love wiring. I hope the suction's normal. I just put the engine together, Gen 5 454, cam gear and crank gear dot to dot with number 1 piston at TDC. Fire it up, so I'm assuming it's right. It sounds like it. Sounds like it's all good. If I had to do a Cobra replica over again, it would be a Daytona. I remember getting to see that first Daytona at SEMA, and I just, Bernie and I sat there for 45 minutes or an hour, just in awe. It was amazing. Daytonas are really cool. It's not like the Cobra. It's much more practical. Just the sealing and the side pipes. Yeah, the exhaust on a Cobra Daytona is not ideal. It's not ideal on a Cobra anyways, a side pipe Cobra. Thing is, some guy bought it back in the day as his daily driver. Yeah, the rocker, it was like Mick Fleetwood or somebody like that. No, it was, who was it? ZZ Top or somebody bought it. One of the guys who bought that first Cobra Daytona and they were driving it around. Be sure to put in a serious anti-sway bar on the rear if you build the Blazer. Will be some good heads for a Forge internal 5.3 turbo build versus VS Racing BTR stage 2 cam. Turbo cams trying to get close to 800 horsepower on 85s. You have 706s. So just use what you have. You could go way over 1,000 horsepower with the stock heads. At least the McLaren would have enough fuel for commuting. I think they held 75 gallons. That's a lot. Thanks for taking the time to look it up. Everything looked happy when we're running it. I'm on the 8th engine we've tested. Oh, okay. On the 901. Cool. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I put a 4.6 iron block together with a Coyote rod, stock 2V GT pistons, and stock 6-bolt cast crank. What do you think will fail first at 20 PSI? The pistons? The headers on the Cobra should end with a turbo inside, then they'll be fine. They will be, yeah, they'll be good. I remember doing tests on both on the very, very long headers that they use for side pipes, and then on the side pipes themselves, and the side pipes killed power. Because we just tested the motors with headers and exhaust, the way we run them on the dyno, and then we ran them with that setup that you'd run in the car on the Cobra, and it was a lot of power. It was a big chunk of power loss. Gonna put Cobra B heads on, supercharge it. Get to see a lot of different cars installing people's granite. What's the best small block Chevy V8 engine ever made, in your opinion? I don't know. Probably one that I've never seen. I want to try and break the crank. I think you're gonna break a piston before you break a crank. I have a 98 Trans Am at stock, thinking of swapping a 6-liter iron block and build, wanting it to make 650. Would you recommend the swap? Why or why not? Well, if you want to make 650, a turbo LS is really easy to do it with, but it's not going to be cheap. So it depends on what your 650 with a I mean, you could with your Trans Am, you could what motor's in it right now? Or does it have a motor in it? I could swap the 5.3 into a Tahoe that came with a 4.8 without having to tune the 4.8 ECU for the 5.3. I just wanted a Pantera, also good. A Pantera GTS, good looking cars. My side pipes are straight through 4-inch tubes. Hope they're not killing power. CSX 2287 was that Daytona with a crazy backstory. Phil Spector, that's who it was, yeah. Music producer. Yeah, that is a great story. I have the history of the Cobra Daytona. Pete Brock stuff. Rev it to 8,000 with the GT crank and boost it. If you work with HP tuners, likes or dislikes, I don't tune with factory stuff, but Jimmy and Joel both do. Travis Amos wants to know if you've done 8.1 Allison combos. He has a 5.7 stock right now and just has exhaust done. Herbie Hancock bought a 63 Cobra off the showroom floor. Just sold my 95 Impala SS. I like the motor. Hated the OBD 5? OBD 1.5 software. Is that what it is? Debated between a 98 Cobra, Kenny Bell, and a Vortec kit. The Vortec would make more power. Do they have a 98 Cobra intercooled kit? Does Kenny Bell have one? I know that they did for the later ones, but they were just using the factory 03 Cobra intercooler, I thought. Vortec 350 from a Suburban are severely underrated. Chevy straight lied to the EPA and the insurance companies. What did they lie about? Being a Mark 8, okay. How much would you deck an iron 4.8 truck motor trying to get zero deck? Well, you have to measure it and see. I don't think you need to deck the iron block, because more often than not on an LS application, the pistons are out of the hole already. So I would measure that and see. So if you're going to deck anything, you got to deck the pistons to get it zero deck. Testing a 2-stroke spinning in reverse. See if Coriolis has any effect. Never tuned or even really looked at an 8.1 or an Allison. They're really cool but big. I don't think so, but I'm going to do water meth for that. Dropping in a 454 and a 2-wheel drive 88 Chevy half ton. You know, they're only 3,650 pounds with a V6. Yeah, the big block should be good. What did Brandon? What did Chevrolet lie about it? I don't remember them putting out torque values at 2,000 RPM. And 2,000 RPM is going to be at the stall speed of the torque converter too. Just got a junkyard LQ9 this morning, $300. Nice score. Can I do a compression test with the oil pan off? Bad idea. Squirt some oil in the cylinders first. Yeah, I mean, or you, if you're concerned about it, you could just put 2 bolts up and put the pan in place. It doesn't need to be there. It's going to move stuff around though. You think a big block Chevy with F1 valve train technology could spin to 20,000? F1 valve train technology is pretty vague. I don't know how you're going to apply that to a big block Chevy since it's a completely different motor. Because Formula One valve train technology would be a 4-valve double overhead cam motor. And I don't know if you're going to do that to a big block Chevy. And it won't do that with its current valve sizes. I worked for Shelby when they had a facility outside of Vegas. I was free staff, met Dick Smothers. He was visiting the Imperial Palace. Love to let you try out. I've been to the Vegas facility before. Love to let you try out the 93 LT5 stroker we're putting together, 4125, 441. So is that that's a ZR1 motor then? And the LT5? And you guys are doing a stroker version of it? It's a great sale. Local pick apart, 50% off on the 4th. I could have had several more LS engines. I know. I need to find a sale weekend. I have some stuff that I want to get. F1 cars have pneumatic valve springs. Like getting those to fit on. Do they have that now? Are they using pneumatic stuff? I thought that they had gone away from that stuff because they had problems with being able to close the valve. But they're still using springs then, right? They got a combo thing going on, a combo meal. There. Your opinion matters. No, it doesn't. $6 a.m. run? No, I don't think so. That's not for me. That's not my jams. There. They neutered the error charts, capped the RPM to 4,500, then updated settings to 6,000 later on by updating ECM program. I don't really understand what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean by error charts, first of all. And I don't know, did they cap RPM to 4,500 with some sort of rev limiter? Because that motor with that cam and those heads and that EFI setup, the way that they had it on a Vortec motor, is not going to make power at 6,000. That's way past the power peak. I want to do a Ford small block 302 stock bore and stroke on the cheap, but I want new parts. I think it's possible with $10,000 to $15,000 budget. Yeah, but I wouldn't do it that way. I just go get a Explorer motor from the wrecking yard. Scotty uses Desmodromic. Yeah, but they're not using that in Formula One though. Still have the gas bags. They're just more careful with the nitrogen tank, not losing pressure. Zero worries about harmonics. Yeah. The valve sizes be the limiting factor, or the stroke length, piston speed. The valve train is the concern. First of all, 20,000 RPM isn't a thing. It'd be lower than that. But the first thing would be valve train. Then you'd worry about the other things. But if you told the Formula One guys, you guys can run a 7-liter or an 8-liter motor, they would figure out, and you have unlimited RPM, they would figure out how to do that. You may have missed the part about the Shelby facility I oversaw. Was in a prison. I want to ask if you think it's possible to break a stock 462 valve crank. I think it is 100% possible. But I don't know. You have so many other things where, like, if you want to break the crank, put it in a really good block with really good rods and really good pistons with a really good tune and make lots of power like Mahovitz does, but do all that with a stock crank and then bend the stock crank or break the stock crank if you want to do it under power and make so much cylinder pressure that you deflect the crank or that you break it with RPM, let's say, or a combination of those things. I think that that's possible. I don't know why you want to do that. It'd be very, very expensive to do that, to isolate that part. Stephen, no, the topic for tonight was how bad is rust and things like that. We talked about that earlier. Small block Ford 302 is still worth building using stock block for up to 400 horsepower for a nice treatable sound. Not worth it going an aftermarket block. Yeah, there's no need for, not for 400 horsepower. I've been going down a static versus dynamic compression ratio and cam timing rabbit hole for the last 3 hours. That's good. That's fun stuff. And unfortunately, it doesn't tell you really what's happening, but it tells you what can happen. Huh? What are you doing? What are you doing? He's a good boy, huh? Hello, handsome. Hello. Putting a Kellogg crank in my Texas block. That's good. F1 uses high pressure N2 for lift and reseating the valves. That's what Chat GTP told me. Those crazy prices on Vortec and Paxton kits for Windsors versus back in the day. Oh, it's made 3,500. Stock piston, coyote rods, and stock crank. I bet it takes 800 before the rods and pistons let go. Is it, how much better is a coyote rod than a stock rod? Sorry about the tangent of the Shelby story. No, being able to talk to those guys, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm in Minnesota, so I know all about rust. Yeah. Multi-port EFI on the 302. Okay, well, it has that from the factory, so that's not unusual. My 94 turned 7,000 stock. LT, let's see. LT4, 355, 11.7, 10.2 dynamic, expensive fuel. Not if you run it at 130 degrees of water temperature and have super cold air going to it. Why don't you put more camshaft in if you have that much static? Have you replaced the punching bag in your backyard? No, I didn't. We do need that. I was just talking to somebody about the punching bag, about learning spinning back fists, and how effective we thought that those would be. You found out the capabilities when you got a tuning program and modified the math charts and altered the other settings. Do you mean when you tune the combination? So it sounds like you're not Brandon. It sounds like you're not happy with the factory tune and that more power was left on the table. That's the way that it is with every motor that's ever made, every fuel injected motor, certainly, and every carbureted motor, because when they put that together, when they put those combinations together, they have to put it together and tune it in such a way that people that put 87 octane in it and then go tow a trailer up a steep grade and don't downshift so that it won't detonate. They have to tune it to the least common denominator. And then that's why there's a lot left on the table. But That's not because they don't know how to do it, or because the reason that they would do that is for, you know, for warranty issues, because people cannot be trusted. 2005 6-liter LS 19G71 K20 started running hot. Tested positive combustion gas in the cooling system. Figure cracked head or cracked head gasket. Replaced head still overheating. So cracked block then, maybe? Yeah. Coyote rod is known safe to 800 wheel horsepower in the Coyote. Richard, what are your thoughts on intake over the radiator versus running a 90-degree elbow? For a factory mass air meter, there are two considerations. One is that there needs to be a length of tubing, I think, before and after, that needs to be straight enough for a long enough period to get a good signal to the mass air meter. Also, get cold air however you can get cold air. Those are the two things. Stock marker rods are made of glass, 350 horsepower. We know that the 2-valve rods will go to 700 horsepower because I've done that. We've done that a lot. So we know that they'll go there. I saw a podcast a week or two about guys letting AI do their tunes. Nice. Does a big engine spitting 5,000 RPM use less fuel at 5,000 than a 5-liter at 6,000 at the same power level? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know what air fuel you're running it at. And factory 2-valve rod supposedly let go in the 500 wheel range, but I think it's more RPM. We know Coyote rods will take 8,000. My question was, do you think tuning with AI would be safe? I don't think it is right now. I don't think right now AI is safe to even answer most questions. It will get there, but it's not right now. Just pulled my LQ4, 300,000 miles, cylinder at no scathing. Unfortunately, my heads have some warp. So what heads do you recommend? A 243 head, a 799 head. Since you have a 6-liter, you could also go to any of the rec port heads if you want to stay with a factory one. Got 1 more minute. You could get access to an engine dyno here on MN. Could we get you to shoot your show here? You mean, could I do a dyno test there? I'm sure that's a different question. Fox body stock 5-liter. Would you go nitrous or turbo for a street car? Looking to do maybe a 331 or maybe Spurge and get a 351 block. What power level do you want? And are you using it? Are you racing it around? Would be my question. I have a stock 04 4-wheel drive 5.3, all stock. What is it you want to do? Not what I would do, because that doesn't matter. Because maybe I want to go like no prep racing with it, but that's not what you want to do. So you got to decide what your build is for and what kind of power level you want, and then I'll tell you how to get there. PB blaster surface shield seems to be the new way to go for rust prevention up here. Running a truck Norris cam. And hope she's getting more happy when I add boost. What rec port heads are the most popular when running 800 horsepower? There is no Jay. There's no stock cylinder head that you could put on an LS and not make 800 horsepower with boost. Any of the stock heads will do that very easily. Any of the stock heads will go way more than that. You could put the least flowing head on there, on your LS, and with a turbo and a mild cam like that, and make way more power than that. So that's not an issue. That's an easy thing. All of them will do that. If this Frankenstein motor lives 3 to 4 years, it'll make 700 plus without grenading. I'll pull it out and send it to you for a big bang it. I want a tow pig. So what are you towing with it, and how much power do you want your towing application to make? Because you could go tow right now with just a stock one like I have in my truck, and that works fine if that's what you want. Building an 862 head LR4. I'm going to carb it. Not sure what size Holly I'm going to use. If the LR4 is all stock, then just put a dual plane and like a 650 carburetor on it. If it's going to be more than that, cammed and stuff, then maybe something bigger. Richard, do you mean an Explorer block is better than a 4-bolt main? No, it's not. But where are you going to find a 4-bolt 302 block? That's a Boss block, or it's an aftermarket block. So you're not going to find either one of those unless you spend the money on it. You don't need for the kind of power that you're talking about, you don't need a 4-bolt block. I think that this was a 400 horsepower thing, right? Obviously, I want to go as fast as I can in the 8th. Steven. Oh, then a cam and springs and turbo is what you should do with that. What cam? 306. If this is the LS that we're still talking about. Now I've gone through so many variations here. You should get one of our low buck truck camshafts. We made 910 or 20 or 30 at 15 pounds of boost in a 5.3 with stock heads and stock intake manifold and just that camshaft. Cam and springs, right size injectors, right size pump. We have all that at richardholdnerperformance.com. Get a low buck truck camshaft. It works really good. And you could make, if you want to make 1,500 horsepower, you could do that. But that's just more and more boost. And the Boss 4-bolt blocks have little outboard bolts like 3/8. Yeah, and you're not going to find a Boss block anywhere. I mean, you're gonna have to go buy a dedicated. You're gonna have to go somewhere and search and find a Boss block, or buy. And I'm talking about a Boss 302 block, or go and buy a Boss block from Ford Racing or a Dart block or whatever, and you can get those. But they're not necessary for most street applications, not street power level applications. So if I run an aftermarket rec port head, do you have any tests documented for different displacements as far as valve lengths? Why are you trying to compare valve lengths for different displacements? What is the correlation there? I mean, for 400 horsepower below, yeah, just you don't for 400 horsepower, just get any block. It doesn't matter what block it is. Go get. I like using the hydraulic roller blocks because you have a hydraulic roller cam, and there's lots of them. Like any 5 liter from a 5 liter Mustang, from a T-Bird, from a truck, from the Explorer, any of those will work fine. 1,500 to 5,500 elevation and grunt, 70 of the top 75-pound weight trailer and race car, get 40 miles per hour now. In a stock 5.3, is that what you have? What aftermarket trans controller would you run with a carb LS? I don't know. I don't have no experience with those. I've never run one of those. Yeah, a stock 5.3 is not ideal for towing. I mean, I have one. I've towed a boat, but the boat's not very heavy though. On that note, it is time to go. But the good news, save all your questions. We'll be back tomorrow. Plenty of answers. Some of them will even be right. See you guys tomorrow.